Hello YouTube, Freddie Cardona here. Welcome back to a special Saturday edition of Driving and the News. You guessed it, I'm on my way to work today. I am working on a Saturday. And because this playlist is a playlist of listening to 1010 Wins on my way to work, you get a Saturday special edition.
AccuWeather says we'll see some additional rain and drizzle until early this afternoon, as areas of standing water will linger. It's going to be breezy and cool with brightening skies late in the afternoon and a high of 65. In Midtown now, it's 58 degrees. More people get their news from 1010 Wins than from any other radio station in the nation. Julia Martin, our service aide, Rebecca Williams, our writer, Phil Pilato is at the editor's desk, and I'm Mitch Levy.
All news, all the time. This is 1010 Wins at 92.3 FM, New York.
Good morning, 58 degrees now at 7 o'clock. I'm Donna Vaughn, and here's what's happening. The city is only beginning to recover from yesterday's intense rainfall, which left roads underwater and paralyzed the subway. We'll go live to AccuWeather. Well, the bad weather has Mayor Adams playing defense.
Anyone was caught off guard, they had to have been living under a rock.
Critics say warnings about the weather before it arrived fell short. Would you pay $100 for a 10-minute Uber ride? New Yorkers are really upset about what rideshare apps were charging during the storm. An angry speech last night from Donald Trump just hours after the first guilty plea from one of the co-defendants in his election interference case in Georgia. An anti-vaccine activist, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., will reportedly drop out of the Democratic primary race and run for president as an independent. The Yankees hammered in KC last night. The Mets and Phillies rained out. They'll make it up with 2 games today at Citi Field. And the New York Liberty one win away from making the WNBA Finals after a Game 3 victory over the Connecticut Sun last night. AccuWeather says still damp outside this morning, but skies should brighten by the afternoon, high 65. Tomorrow looking a lot nicer. Winds News Time 7:01 traffic and transit. Here's Sue Aller.
And Donna, there is still flooding out there today, especially on the FDR Drive on the northbound side, hitting the brakes from about 79th Street all the way up to 88th Street. The left lane is blocked. The avenues are actually in much better shape right now. Let's take it over to Brooklyn, outbound on the Gowanus Expressway, getting reports of an accident just before the Prospect, right around 9th Avenue. And then the eastbound BQE, that's just very slow with those wet roads right by Atlantic Avenue. Now in Queens, the westbound side of the LIE, the main roadway is still good. We had a collision on the lower roadway on the ramp to the eastbound BQE. It looks like that has been cleared, but we're now seeing some delays on the northbound side of the Cross Island Parkway as you approach the Throgs Neck Bridge. That is a big area that floods, so just keep that in mind. There is flooding closing down the Sawmill River Parkway in Westchester by Executive Boulevard, and we have flooding on the Hutchinson River Parkway in both directions at the Cross County. Here's what you need to know about the bridges and tunnels. They are okay, but you want to reduce your speeds with the wet roads. The outbound George Washington Bridge lower level is closed till about 8 o'clock this morning. So is the outbound Holland Tunnel. So you got to go with the outbound Lincoln Tunnel. And here's what we see on Long Island's Big 3. You are doing okay on the southern, the northern, and the LIE, but there's an accident southbound on the Steve Garza Bay Expressway at the Northern State Parkway, and the left lane is closed. In New Jersey, watch out for another crash northbound on Route 1. And this is just south of the Garden State Parkway. The right lane is closed. Traffic and transit every 10 minutes on the ones breaking traffic alerts whenever they happen. I'm Sue Aller, 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM.
Low price home heating oil is now available at a fixed price that can save you hundreds of dollars a year on your home heating bill. Don't wait. Call Slovin right now at 866-OIL-DEAL.
Well, some roads still flooded, some trains not running after all that rain yesterday. The bad weather isn't quite finished with us yet. Meteorologist Matt Benz joins us live now to fill us in. Matt?
And after a couple months worth of rainfall yesterday, things looking a little bit quieter for today. Still dealing with some rain, though. Steady rain pushing across western Suffolk County, trying to move into Nassau County right now. Areas that were, of course, hit hard yesterday may get some more rain here this morning. Here's the good news. While we still have a lot of standing water out there, this rain should generally wrap up here by the early afternoon. Much drier for tonight. Beautiful one for tomorrow, trending more with the high at 75. Donna, back to you.
All right, thank you, Matt Ben. Stick with 1010 Winds for live updates from AccuWeather this morning, of course. Now, forecasters began warning about the storm on Thursday night, but critics have been calling out Mayor Adams for what they say was a less than urgent response to the impending emergency.
The social media and Notify NYC updates were there, but Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso says Mayor Adams has a responsibility to be front and center before a storm like this.
I'm not asking for the mayor to declare an emergency before he thinks there is one. I'm not asking for him to shut down schools, but it's to give us as much information as possible very early on, and that it come from him.
He thinks the city underestimated how bad the storm would be.
Well, if anyone was caught off guard, they had to have been living under a rock.
The mayor says public officials knocking his response should make better use of their time.
During the times of emergencies, their role is to be there for their constituencies. I don't think there's no time for tweets or press releases.
Mac Rosenberg, 1010 Winds on 92.3 FM.
Yesterday's flooding was historic, with over 8 inches falling at JFK in just a matter of hours, close to 6 at Central Park. And it's not just how much rain fell, but how quickly it came down.
Between 8 and 9 a.m., the Brooklyn Navy Yard received 2.58 inches of rain in 1 hour. And I think many of you know, in the aftermath of Hurricane Ida, we were all educated about the fact that our sewer system was designed for 1.75 inches per hour.
And that is the city's Department of Environmental Protection Commissioner Rohit Agarwala. The storm left much of the subway system out of service at the peak of the afternoon rush on Friday. Trying to get in and out of Brooklyn was a challenge much of the day. MTA Chair Jano Lieber.
Subway impacts are greatest in Brooklyn. It's no secret that Brooklyn got hit brutally hard in the early AM, and that has continued.
Now, meanwhile, at the airport, yesterday's delays and cancellations are spilling over into today. JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark report almost 3 dozen flight cancellations already this morning between them, and about 60 delayed flights. Stick with 1010 Winds for the latest on traffic and transit around the clock on the ones. Well, if you needed a ride share while the rain was falling, hopefully you could afford it. New Yorkers are ripping Uber and Lyft for their surge pricing during the rush hour rainstorm. Well over $100 a ride for many people at the peak of the bad weather. One Uber customer posted on social media that a 10-minute commute to work cost her $80, and she included a screenshot of the app to prove it. Now, surge pricing is of course nothing new for the rideshare apps, but customers say it should be suspended when there's a flood warning and mass transit isn't running. An often angry speech in California last night from Donald Trump, just hours after a major development in his election interference case in Georgia.
The first guilty plea in the sprawling racketeering case that accuses former President Trump and 18 others of conspiring to overturn the 2020 election results in Georgia.
How do you plead to the 5 counts of conspiracy to commit intentional interference with performance of elections?
Guilty. In a surprise hearing, Scott Hall, a bail bondsman, pleaded guilty to 5 misdemeanor conspiracy charges that accused him of trying to breach voting systems after the election. He agreed to serve 5 years probation and testify against Trump and the others.
Correspondent Aaron Katursky. Later in the day, Trump spoke at the California Republican Party convention in his typically combative style. He repeated his unproven claims of widespread voter fraud, called on police to shoot robbery suspects on sight, and complained that rich people in Beverly Hills smell bad because of the state's water shortages. Presidential hopeful Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has reportedly decided to pursue a different path to the White House. According to Mediaite, the 69-year-old anti-vaccine activist will drop his bid to challenge President Biden for the Democratic nomination and will instead run as an independent. He'll reportedly make the announcement official on October 9th during an appearance in Philadelphia. Recent surveys say RFK Jr. is polling at about 15% nationally in a Democratic matchup, well behind President Biden with 56%. An 8.5-year prison sentence handed out Friday to the Queens woman who randomly attacked a Broadway singing coach last year, leaving the senior citizen with a fatal head injury. The sentence for 28-year-old Lauren Pazienza was 6 months longer than it was supposed to be because, said the judge, the defendant has shown no remorse. Pazienza has reportedly minimized the run-in to probation officials, making it sound like an accident. State Supreme Court Judge Felicia Menon says the defendant isn't being truthful and hasn't accepted responsibility. Barbara Mayer Gus Stern was walking near her home in Chelsea when Pazienza suddenly charged at her for no reason, shoving her to the ground where she hit her head. The victim was 87 years old. Winds News Time 7:09. Traffic and AccuWeather next.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this special Saturday edition of Driving and the News. A bit cloudy, a lot of rain as we pass the American Legion post 415 in Saddlebrook. All right, guys, we'll see you on the next video.